been enough peace. Technology. Yeah! Woo! Okay. Are you the President of the United States? Did your approval ratings tumble right out of the gate? Is your blatant willingness to use the power of the White House to profit your business in violation of the Emoluments Clause, combined with your adorable habit of threatening people who displease the boss, and a shady unwillingness to be candid about your coziness with Vladimir Poo-Poo, who during the campaign actively helped you, and your admission live across the TV wire that the reason you fired your homie James Comey was his ongoing investigation into your staff's Putin connection, and your inability to negotiate major legislation despite professing to be a master at negotiations. Are all these hints of corruption and incompetence causing ego deflation in your administration? It's not your fault. You deserve impunity. After a while, after all, the entire intelligence community, along with thousands of trained reporters, are all consorting to take down the only honest politician in town. So, how does an honest businessman get rolling when opinion polls come a-trolling? 1, 2, 3, 4, now it's time to go to war. Beat your fists on your breastplate. Throw rockets like splatters on a woman's chest, mate. Send American troops to scoop that disrespectful heckler right out of Pyongyang. Play bang bang with Kim Jong-un, the only fat dude in a starving country. It's almost too easy. Kim Jong-un has an ego the size of the moon and flies into a rage when things don't go his way. Hey, you totally understand this guy. Americans are all scared they might die. Scared of a tiny dictator with ridiculous plans and tiny hands. I meant Kim Jong-un, not you. Your hands are huge. People are scared. Tap into that, you. The only thing that will make them less scared to die is sending other people's kids off to die. It's amazing how much voters get high sending other voters off to die. Why does everybody hate you? Of course the Democrats always did. Who knows why? But even now, the Republicans are shooting down your plan to help Putin because Republicans hate that cat even more than they hate a Democrat. So the fat lady is warming up to sing on you. Impeachment or the 25th Amendment are both a thing on you, but you are not beaten. You will never let your lunch be eaten. Congress would be scared to the core to oppose a commander-in-chief during a war. So, here's what you do. Walk across the sea and give Kim Jong-un a big giant wedgie. When he turns around and slaps your face, point at him. Say, see him disrespect me? He needs to learn his place. And then attack him. And when China comes to defend him, attack China too. It will be a war like has never been seen before. Millions will die, and your approval ratings will be so high, Congress will never dare ride the impeachment mare. In fact, even threatening war has been good for your approval score. Rasmussen reports your approval rating jumped 8 points after you pointed missiles at the North Korean dictator. Look, you can't get rid of the Russia scandals, so let's make voters walk a mile in bloodier sandals. 1, 2, 3, 4. Are you gonna take us to war? Remember, Americans, no matter how the war begins, Trump always wins. Thank you. Please give it up for Abel Tomlinson. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. This is a really important day and a really important event, I believe. No matter what happens, we can say that we spoke up. I didn't prepare anything too formal. I just have some basic ideas that I want to try to hit upon. And so this could be a jumble, and I could
go back and forth, but I'll give it a shot. We're here today because Trump has threatened nuclear attack and war with North Korea. He's threatened fire and fury like the world has never seen. And most people understand that. This sounds to be a threat of a nuclear attack. And isn't it ironic that we're going to potentially attack a country because they're threatening people with nuclear bombs?
Not we, Trump.
No, but they're saying that Kim Jong-un is threatening people with nuclear bombs. But what's Trump doing? He's threatening someone with a nuclear bomb. So shouldn't we be bombing ourselves? This threat should be taken very, very, very seriously. Some people could say, well, it's just a threat, he's just blowing smoke. And maybe that could be true at first, but this is how wars start. Wars start with words. And one person says one thing and the other person says another thing, and it escalates out of hand. And you get two people like this, especially Trump, a very arrogant person. And if he says things and he gets backed into that corner, he can back himself in a corner with language. You know, he'll look like a big wimp if he doesn't attack North Korea now. And so, you know, if North Korea keeps threatening, I mean, it's a very dangerous situation. And I'm hearing way too much pro-war sympathy in the United States. Online, I'm reading people, and people left and right, even some Democrats are supporting even limited strikes on North Korea. But the thing is, there is no such thing as a small limited strike. It would certainly escalate into full-scale war. There's no doubt about it in my mind. And here's something important to remember. The capital is Seoul, South Korea. Seoul, South Korea is one of the largest cities in the world, and it's just a few miles from the North Korean border. It would be very easy for North Korea to retaliate and kill a whole hell of a lot of people in Seoul, South Korea. So when we talk about war, keep in mind, when you're supporting war, you're supporting the potential deaths of millions of Koreans, at the very least. And it could start including Japanese and Americans as well. There would certainly be thousands of them, or millions of them potentially killed. This is a potentially very serious, dangerous situation. It could threaten us all. If Trump is really serious and drops a nuclear bomb, how do you think China is going to respond? How do you think Russia is going to feel? This could escalate into a world war. There's probably never been a more serious moment in human history than right now, and from my perception, my perspective. Even Hitler, he didn't have enough power and bombs to blow up the whole world. So this is more dangerous than Hitler almost. And you know, this president's threatening nuclear war. That will destabilize yet another region in the world. Not only are we in endless wars in the Middle East that are costing trillions of dollars and millions of lives, but we're going to destabilize another region. And you know, this is one of the most important economic regions in the world. It will destabilize China and Japan. And you know, I just can't believe it. It's unbelievable to me. But I want to point to another thing. One of the pro-war arguments I'm hearing is that we must help the people of North Korea because they're suffering. They are suffering, but the war will compound their misery 1,000,000 times. You know, we say we want to spread democracy and freedom, you know, with the barrel of a gun and a bomb. We're going to spread democracy all over the world. Well, that might be believable if the United States just overthrew dictators, but we have a record of overthrowing democracies too. So when we talk about spreading democracy and caring about other people, it actually doesn't make any sense because you wouldn't have overthrown the Iranian democracy or the democracy in Chile. The list goes on and on. I think we've overthrown 50 governments since World War II. And then, you know, the real reason that we're engaged in these things, let's get down to it, is really virtually all the wars since World War II have been for profit. They've been for empire. They've been for imperial hegemony. And that's what this is again. And as I said, it's obviously not for an honest, you know, spreading of freedom and democracy, as they like to say. And let's see. Yeah. Okay, well, again, China, pay attention to what China said too. They said if we attack North Korea, they're not going to allow the United States to change the makeup of the Korean Peninsula. So essentially China is saying that they will respond in some way to the United States doing this. And you know, you may say, oh, well, North Korea would have trouble maybe getting a missile over here. Maybe they can, we don't know. But China absolutely has a lot of very powerful nuclear weapons that they could absolutely deliver, and that should be kept in mind. And you know, we've been escalating with Russia too, and this goes on before Trump and under the Obama administration, but we've always escalated with Russia. But the escalations in the last few years have increased significantly. You know, one of the most important things to communicate here, and for you to know, and you may already know this, but when you're talking to people about these issues, is the reality of military exercises, war games. The military exercises and war games that we practice on all these other countries' borders, including multiple nuclear-armed nations. North Korea is one of them, Russia. We've been practicing massive military games with bombs and soldiers and tanks on their borders. And some of them on the Korean borders, we're practicing war games with these massive battle fleets, with massive warships. We're threatening war. And North Korea said they want diplomacy, they want negotiations, but the United States doesn't want to give them that. And the main thing that Korea wants, this is extremely important, I told the media this, we need to focus on the solution. It's diplomacy, it's peace talks, and the one thing that Korea has repeated over and over again, they want a stop to the war games, the military maneuvers, the military exercises on their borders that have been happening since 1950 when we went to war with them and destroyed their country. I want to say 2.7 million civilians were killed in that war. A lot of them are at our hands. We killed a hell of a lot of civilians in that war. And they don't forget that. And we have had military bases on their borders ever since. We practiced war games in their waters and on their coast ever since. We're constantly threatening them with war. Of course that's going to make people act crazy. And if they think a nuclear bomb's the only way to stop us, then it makes sense that they would want one. No, is it dangerous? Will it make the United States more likely to attack? Maybe. But the ultimate important thing to remember is that we are threatening them constantly with these war games. That's what we need to go negotiate about. They will freeze their nuclear program potentially if we promise to stop the war games and to conclude a peace. We have never technically concluded peace with North Korea. That's the important point to tell people. And I think that about sums it up. One last thing I'll say is that, you know, Medea Benjamin and other peace activists immediately had a protest on the steps of the White House after Trump threatened fire and fury. And they protested against the potential for nuclear war. And one thing, one of the speakers there emphasized that there is actually a House resolution, HR 669. I don't know how open ears of our congressmen will be, but it can't hurt to ask them, you know, not only to urge them to pressure Trump not to go to war, not to start nuclear war, contact them, it can't hurt, but also to ask them to support HR 669, which takes away the president's power for first strike nuclear attack.
Yeah.
This would remove the president. So here's the reality. We think that, you know, the president needs authority to go to war and these kinds of things, and, you know, some of that's been taken away by the war on terror. But the reality is the president can launch a nuclear weapons just on his own, by himself, within minutes. That's incredibly dangerous. And one of the speakers in D.C. at this protest, they said it's like a toddler having a gun in his hand. What do? You take the gun away from the toddler. So Trump is the same way. He's got his little hand on the red button. We need to take that button away from his hand. It's extremely important. You know, our species' existence kind of depends on it. But, so yeah, support HR 669. Email, call your congressmen, your senators. Talk with your friends and family. Talk about peace. Talk about the dangers of this war. You know, raise consciousness. That's what matters, is public consciousness and public opinion. We need to build as much consciousness in opposition to this war as soon as possible, as fast as possible. And, you know, hope like hell that we can make it through this. And if we do, I think that, you know, the prospects for peace in the future could be very great. We just got to make it through this birthing process. We can make it past Trump. That's about all I got. Thank you so much for coming. And may peace prevail. Yeah. If anybody else wants to say, you know, they feel inspired to speak, they have a couple words, feel free to come up here and say anything, as long as it's relevant.
Hello. So
Oh.